further, and Robert didn't either kind of elaborate further on it at this point. At least they just said, we just think it's a collection of men that have these atrocities, so to speak, in common, and not to the fact that they are Masons or whatever. Do you think that is the case, or could the cover-up potentially be by formed or being allowed by an underground network here in some way? Maybe not Masonic necessarily, but some other kind of secret society. What do you think, David?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I talk about something that I call the cement. You've got all these different people operating in politics and law and business and banking and media and all the rest of it. You've got all these strands in this web, and there is cement that holds this stuff together and holds these people together. And a very, very large part of this cement is pedophilia, Satanism, and secret societies. And those three networks connect. It doesn't mean that every Freemason is a pedophile and a Satanist. It doesn't mean every Satanist and pedophile is a Freemason.
Sure.
No, but at very, very deep levels within these rings, they do connect. And the significant people involved are Freemasons or members of even more, elite secret societies. They are Satanists and they are pedophiles. And that's the level where the ring and the major players in the ring operate. And you can see in the Scottish example, the blueprint. There is a blueprint that comes up whenever I investigate this anywhere in the world, because after 2 decades of doing this, I've seen and brought to the surface so many different things, and I've researched so many different things. And of course, when I set out in 1990, consciously doing this, I was in for some shocks along the way. But the biggest, I would say, is not that pedophilia, Satanism, and this whole secret society thing is happening, particularly pedophilia and Satanism, but the scale of it and how fundamental it is to those who are running the world in terms of the banking, business, government, all the rest of it, military, is absolutely, not anymore, but has been absolutely staggering to me to see the scale of it. And whenever I've picked up a major player, someone who's turned out to be a major player, and pursued the dominoes of uncovering the background to them, pedophilia and Satanism come up over and over and over and over again. And I'm talking some of the most famous people in the world who've been presidents and prime ministers and all the rest of it. And there is a blueprint. First of all, what they do is they manipulate events so that they control in any situation. For instance, the Franklin cover-up in America. It's a famous example of this. John DeCamp, a former state senator in Nebraska, uncovered a banking fraud with the Franklin Savings and Loans operation involving a guy called Lawrence King, who was a major Republican and sang the national anthem at the Republican conventions in 1984 and 1988. But he was doing more than singing for them. It turns out, as DeCamp got deeper and went beyond the financial fraud for which King was jailed, and found that King was running a pedophile ring in Nebraska and wider across America, that was supplying children for sex to the major politicians in America and would do so during these Republican conventions. What he then found, DeCamp, is that this pedophile ring involved the people that controlled the local media, radio and newspapers, the people that controlled the police, major politicians that controlled policy and political policy, government policy in that area, et cetera, and also how it panned out to include other people that were, shall we say, very, very well known in America, and still are in historical terms. But so you find this in the blueprint. They cover all bases. They cover the coroner's office. They have their own doctors. They have their own pathologists, which means that they cover all bases in terms of procuring children. They cover. They have their people majorly in social services and children's hostels and places where orphanages and stuff.
Yes.
And so they cover all bases, which include procuring the children, sexually abusing and satanically sacrificing the children, and then covering the whole thing up because they control all these different aspects of the establishment in terms of doctors and coroners and courts and judges and politicians, etc. What you then find in the blueprint is whenever any genuine media come in to try to uncover and expose what's going on, suddenly, bang, a big wall goes up. And we saw this with the Franklin cover-up involving Lawrence King, when a Yorkshire television documentary, which Yorkshire Television in Britain, which was supposed to go out on the Discovery Channel, was pulled at the very last minute.
Yes.
Which and all copies were they were told to be destroyed. Well, at least one wasn't, and you can see it on the internet. So when we take this to the Hollie Greig situation, Henrik, we see exactly the same blueprint, because it's like rings within rings within rings, and you've got the global ring, but and that operates in the same way as all the individual rings in the different countries and regions operate. So with Hollie Greig, you had the people doing it to her were establishment people, including this sheriff that she talks about. Then you have the wall going up, where the procurator fiscal in that region of Grampian, around a city called Aberdeen, a lady called Eilish Angeloni, she refused to pursue the case when she was there, and then she was given the job of being the top law officer in Scotland, the so-called Lord Advocate, and she stopped it at that level as well. You then had the police who in the Grampian region, Aberdeen, who would not investigate the case. And when they were forced into some kind of investigation, they made sure it went nowhere. And interestingly, the guy McCracker, who's the chief constable, the head of the police in Grampian, who refused to pursue this case, and his police force refused to pursue this case, and the very same chief constable whose police arrested Robert Greene for trying to expose what had happened in terms of child abuse to Hollie Greig, this man, McCracker, the chief constable, is chairman of the North East Scotland Child Protection Committee. I mean, there would seem to be a massive contradiction there, but when you've investigated this stuff all over the world, you might think, well, maybe there's another explanation. You know, maybe people can work out that there could be another explanation for that apparent contradiction. I've worked it out, and I don't think it's terribly difficult. But then the BBC, going back to Yorkshire Television and the Franklin case with the Discovery Channel, the BBC then come in, and a genuine reporter, in fact about three, I think, started putting this documentary together to expose what had happened to Hollie Greig, and told Robert Greene, we have found more evidence of paedophilia, establishment paedophilia in Scotland. Well, there's plenty of it to be found. And then what happens? The reporter calls and said, it's all been dropped because we've all been threatened, and if we go any further with it, then we're all going to be sacked. Now, this blueprint is so obvious wherever you